Welcome everyone to the Choose Recovery Services Road to Recovery webinar. Happy to have you with us and glad that you took some time out of your Sunday evening to be here. I'm excited to have Laura Fisher here with me today. She's my friend and fellow coach at Choose, actually therapist now at Choose Recovery Services, just getting ready to graduate out of that program and move into the therapy world. So she'll have dual professional training and coaching and therapy. So, but I've gotten to work closely with Laura in an intensive and love her. So you're going to love her too. I know you will. But we are excited that you're here with us. While we're waiting for a few more people to get on, I'm going to just share a few announcements with you, and then we'll get started into our topic for tonight. First of all, I'm going to put the announcement sheet for Choose Recovery Services in the chat. If you click on that link, that'll take you to the announcement page, which has basically a link to anything you could possibly want to know or anything that you want more information on that's happening at Choose. I'm just going to highlight a couple of things. There are two upcoming, well, there's many intensives coming up next year, at least one a month, I think, next year. But there's two that are coming up soon. One is a men's intensive that is January 15th through the 17th. And then we have, and that one is for men who are working their recovery. I personally know some of my own clients who have been. I've heard nothing but really good feedback from it. You get to spend some time with Luke and Alana at the office in Utah, and highly recommend that you do that if you're someone looking to kind of put a jump start on your healing if you're a man in this work. So highly recommend that. And then I think it's the 23rd that weekend, and the week after that, Laura and I will be facilitating, and Alana will be facilitating another intensive for women. This one is a somatic healing intensive. And so we're going to be focusing a lot on healing the impact of trauma on your body. And we've got a lot of fun things planned for that. I mean, it's going to be work too, but you're going to be learning some awesome new tools. And when you do intensives at Choose Recovery, I don't know what it's like everywhere else, but at Choose, we're not just sitting there listening and like sitting in classes for 4 days. We like to make them experiential. So you'll be doing things and actually experiencing them. And yes, I just saw the question that come into the chat. Can I talk about current group support options for women? Before we jump in, let me just share a little. We have lots of group options at Choose Recovery Services. Actually, Laura, I'm talking a lot. Let me let you explain the group support options at Choose. Do you want to?
Oh, I don't know if I know all of the options.
Okay,
I
you
know that
explain
I
what you
run
know and I'll
couple of
fill in.
okay. So I know we have betrayal trauma groups. I run two of those groups, and I know that there's some that are offered like on different days as well by some of our other coaches. And then there's some divorce support groups. Those are the ones that I run. I'm not sure. I know you run like a leaning in. Is that right?
So there are the ones that Laura's talking about. She runs two, I run one. There's a couple of our other coaches run them. They're called Choose Healing, and they're for women who are working through betrayal trauma. There's a link to those. There are Choose Healing groups for divorce, women who are either have already decided to divorce or are in the process of divorce or are divorced. And then there are groups for women who are either choosing to stay or still undecided. And so lots of options there. I run a support group for women called Leaning In, and it is for women who have some level of safety in their relationship. They are working towards reconciliation. Their spouse has been doing work and creating some level of safety. So there's been some work done on both sides. And they're in the place where they're so a little farther along. You're not in the initial stages of trying to stabilize, and you've got some recovery under your belt. And so that one's called Leaning In. And then there's also a group for women who are the ones with sexual integrity issues. So if you're the one who is struggling with sexual misbehaviors, we have a group for those. And I only put the link to the first one in there because I was talking, but once we get moving, I'll put the link to the other ones in there. Betrayal trauma, choose healing for women who choose to say, is there an email to get more info? So I will put, I think I put the link. Did I put the link? Yes, I'll put the email to put. Oh, you're not seeing the link.
See, I'm seeing it in the chat.
You know what? I will have Vanessa put it in the email that goes out with the recording after this. I think it goes out tomorrow. So I'll make sure that she puts the links to these things in there for you so that you can have them. And then I will put Vanessa's email. Vanessa is our amazing administrative person that keeps us all on all and all under control at you. She's amazing at what she does. So she can answer any questions that you have about any of the groups, any of the intensives, basically anything you have going on. Vanessa's a really good place to start. And if she doesn't know the answer, I'll be surprised, but she will know who does know the answer for you. So I will put her email in the chat.
It
And
is, you posted it just to hosts and panelists. I think that's why they can't see it.
oh, who do I need to post it to?
I think everyone.
Everyone. Yep. Let me try that again. See if this works. Does everyone see that now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I'm not a good multitasker. I can't talk and look at things at the same time. So, oh, I also didn't get the link to the announcement sheet in there either. So let me try that again. Okay. I'll put the other links, the direct links for the other groups in there as well after we get talking for a minute and I'm not multitasking. Okay, so I think that kind of covers some of the business. Oh, one other intensive that I wanted to give you a little heads up on, there's a couples retreat, couples intensive happening in Arizona, March 26th through 29th. Let me make sure the dates on that. The registration page is not live yet. It should be soon. So yeah, couples is the 26th through 29th in Mesa, Arizona. Alana and I are doing that one, and I'm excited about that because that's close to my house. So we have some incredible things planned for that too, experiential things, not just sitting and listening, but and we'll be doing some excursion type things, and it's going to be awesome. So this is also for couples who are a little bit, they're not in the early stages, so have some safety and stabilization and are working towards some, more reconnecting, healthy communication, rebuilding. They're in that phase of healing. So we're not going to say you have to have had a disclosure, but you either need to have had one or have decided maybe that's not the right thing for you. And so if you would like more information on that, either Alana or I will be doing a brief consultation with any of the couples that are interested in coming to the intensive in March, but it's going to be awesome too. So the webinar or the link to that will be live this week, and if it's live before this goes out, I'll have Vanessa send it in. But if you want more information about that, you can reach out to Vanessa and she can help you learn more, or you can reach out to me too. So, okay. So let me tell you a little bit about Laura. I don't know all the cool things about Laura, but this is what I do know is that she has a ton of experience working with both males and females. She runs the betrayal trauma support groups. She loves trainings, so she has a ton of trainings under her belt. She is just finishing school to become a therapist. She's been coaching for a long time. She is one of my favorite people. I'm excited that you get to hear from her tonight. And as we were talking about what we wanted to talk about tonight, we kind of settled on the topic of creating safety or having a safety plan for the holidays, since we're in the thick of that. And for whatever reason, holidays seem to be really difficult in this journey. So Laura, I'm going to pass it to you and let you kind of introduce our topic for tonight. Before I do that, I want, if y'all look at the bottom, there's a Q&A box at the bottom. We would ask that any questions that you have, to put your questions in the Q&A, and then we'll be able to kind of keep track of them. And we want questions, not just, we're open to any questions. Not that either of us have all the answers, but we're willing to give you our insight or point you to a resource. So if your questions are not related to what we're talking about tonight, that's totally fine and it's appropriate. We want your questions about whatever is on your heart or whatever on your mind. So feel free to put your questions in the chat. We're going to talk a little bit about our topic for a few minutes, and then we will go to any of the questions. So feel free that at any time you have a question either about what we're talking about or something else that you have on your mind, feel free to put those in the Q&A, and then we will try to get to all of those if we can. So can I post the Zoom meeting number for this? Maybe. Yes, I'll find it while Laura introduces and put it in the chat.
Okay, and I might just like confuse everybody right now because I also want you to maybe have your chat open as well. So the Q&As for any questions that you have that you want us to answer live, but I'm going to ask you to participate in the chat because I am not used to just not talking to people. So I want to just start this out for just a second. And when I say the word Christmas, I want you to just throw in the chat, what are the first words that come to your mind? Like what comes to your mind when I say that? Christmas season, dread, oh, gifts, overwhelm, family. Okay, anybody else? Is it over? Oh, I can just sense, just even in reading that, is it over like the overwhelm that you're feeling right now? And it is so hard at the holidays when you are already dealing with this to then have to try to create magic for your family and friends. And okay, yeah, family. Okay. So the reason why I wanted to like start out with that is because usually when we say something like Christmas or Thanksgiving or something, usually you'll have like a picture come to your head first, right? And then sometimes you might even get like smells or like I think of cold or snow because that's where I live. And so there's that experiential part of that. Okay. So am I allowed to share my screen?
You can try, and if
Let's
you can,
see.
I'll try to give you permission.
No, I think I can. I'm going to just share my screen for a second.
There you go.
Just because I think this is a good way to start out this discussion. Okay. So this is like going to be brain 101. So if you are a neurosurgeon, this is not your topic tonight, but this is just to kind of give us an overall view of like what we're dealing with here. Okay. So right brain dominant, that's where like somatic, like experiential, the sights, the smells, the tastes of Christmas. That's where that is registered. Okay. It's kind of like holistic. There's no words on that side of your brain. It's more intuitive. There's your implicit memory. So like once I know how to ride a bike, I can just get on the bike and ride the bike because my implicit memory knows how to do that. I think I already said there's like no words on this side. It's really, really, really fast. Okay. Because this is also the side of your brain that helps you survive danger. Okay. So then you have the left side of your brain, and that's where logic is. That's where timelines are. That's where words are. That's where like problem solving and explicit memory. And this is a much slower process, the left side of your brain. But this is like when you have right brain and left brain working together, this is how you can create a complete memory. Okay. And then you've got this line right here. This is your corpus callosum. And that is what helps your left brain and your right brain communicate back and forth. Okay. So when they're communicating back and forth, then we are creating complete memories that are processed in a safe way in our brain. Okay. But when you have trauma, this goes offline because the blood flow and the energy needs to be on the side of the brain that's going to help me survive whatever I am experiencing. So if a bear starts chasing me, now I am fully in survival mode and I'm just running, right? So when we're talking about the holidays, this is why it can be so hard because so much of the sights and smells and tastes and sounds and all of our senses are involved in the holidays. And when that happens, sometimes there's also triggers involved in that. And so often we're kind of hijacked in that space. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about tonight. It's like, how do we create a safety plan to help us stay regulated in the holidays? Okay. So I'm curious, are there any questions that we need to answer so far? Where am I going to see those?
There was one that came in and it's not particularly on this topic, so I actually answered a question. I asked her
Oh,
another question privately, but it moved to the answered. So we'll make sure we get to it, but it's not particularly on this topic. So, yeah.
okay. Okay. So, I mean, I don't, how much do you want me to be yapping?
I think we should maybe highlight a few of those, maybe just high level topic that that you and I discussed previously. So do you want to hit on a couple of those?
Sure, sure. So the first one that we kind of were chatting about earlier is let's just recognize that sometimes your brain is going to be hijacked. And it's not something that you're choosing or your partner is choosing. It is something that something in your environment has identified something that feels familiar to something that was dangerous. And so your brain can get hijacked during this time of year. And when that happens, your capacity is going to shrink so much. So you might just be in this moment, sitting here in this webinar and thinking, I only have 20% capacity. Like, that's all I have. Like, I'm thinking overwhelm, dread, is it over? Like, some of the things that you guys said in the chat. I'm sensing that some of you are in that space right now. I'm only at 20%. Let's just honor that if you're at 20% capacity and you're giving 20%, then you're functioning at 100% of your capacity. And we might have to make some adjustments on how we handle the holidays because your capacity is just lower, right? Okay, so that's gonna entail needing to have different expectations about how we approach this season. So I'm curious, Hallie, did you want to address any of this from like the couple's perspective?
Yeah, I think we need to. I think it's just important for both of you to be aware, whether you're the one that's working to create safety and rebuild trust, or whether you're the betrayed partner. It's important to know that there might be some challenges, and that I think the more, if you're the one who is working to rebuild trust, the one who's acted out, it's important to have some understanding of what your spouse is experiencing. And I like that you highlighted that your brain might get hijacked and it's not something that you're choosing. It's not that you're choosing to be triggered. I've never met anyone that I've worked with that was like, well, I'm just going to choose to make these holidays miserable because I'm going to be triggered all the time. I've never met anybody that wants that. They actually want the opposite. They want more than anything, they wish this could just be normal. And so what I would say, if we think of this from a couple's perspective, is for both of you to realize that there might have to be some adjustments this year and maybe next year. And maybe going forward, maybe if you're like me, you've realized that you let some things go that you just never picked back up again, and it's okay. And they weren't actually really serving me all that well. And so I think that it's good to just have some awareness. And then I think as we're talking about these things, if you are the one who has acted out, if you can be proactive in being attentive to what your spouse might be experiencing, and maybe ask for things that they might need from you that would be helpful for them through, if you're at a, maybe holidays in general, but if you have a specific holiday party or get together that you normally go to, what might they need from you? Is there, I kind of think of things that activate you in two different categories. The ones that you kind of can anticipate might be hard, and the ones that you have no idea and they come out of nowhere. And all of a sudden you're just overwhelmed with it. The ones that you can kind of anticipate if there's a certain person, a friend or relative that is going to be at a party that is boundaryless or that nosy or that is activating for whatever reason, we might need to make a plan about that together. And if you can make a plan together about, okay, what do you need for safety? Is there anything that I can do that would help you feel more comfortable? I always like to think about having like a cue that nobody else knows about, but like maybe it's a squeeze their elbow or come and say a certain word or something that gives the cue to the two of you that, hey, I need a break. Or can you step outside with me and help me talk through this? Or maybe we might need to leave a little bit early, and that's okay. But I think having a plan that you can come up with together is important. So when I think about addressing this from a couple's perspective, I think it's having the sensitivity and getting out in front of it and making a plan together is going to set yourselves up for to have the most possible um the most possibility for a positive experience if you can be communicating about it ahead of time.
Mm, mm. Okay, can we slow that down even farther for a second?
Yep.
Because I'm guessing, and maybe I'm just like trying to crawl into everybody's brain right now, but I'm guessing that there was some people that were like, okay, but I don't know what to anticipate. So how would that conversation go? Like, what would you sit down and talk to your partner about, like anticipating? Let's start with maybe a work party. How would
Okay.
you preemptively communicate about that?
Yeah. So work parties can be tricky because you don't always know everybody that's going to be there, right? And so if, let's say there's been infidelity, you're acting out with another person that's been part of your story, there might be someone that has the same color hair as the affair partner. Or there might be somebody that doesn't, I mean, I'm assuming there's probably going to be a lot of people that don't know your story and what you're experiencing. And so saying, okay, if there's anything like that, like someone that reminds you of something, or you see, those are the triggers you can't always anticipate. But if you get activated around something, no matter what it is, if it's something somebody says or a song that comes on or somebody that you see or something that I do, I'm willing to step outside with you. I'm willing to leave early. Or, if you're the one that's the betrayed partner, would you be willing to step outside with me? So
Mm.
it's making, for the betrayed partner, you're making a request. Would you be willing to help me through any sort of activation that might come up? And if I get activated, can I say, hey, I need to step outside for a minute, or whatever your cue is that you guys come up with together? And then if you're the one who's acted out, being willing to do that. Um, I always like it when the one that's acted out is leading this, but a betrayed partner has a right to make requests and to ask for things that they need or they might anticipate that they need. So that's where I would start, is saying, we may not know what's going to come up. Or I do know that this certain person is activating to me.
Mm.
Can we make sure that we don't sit at the same table with them? Can we make sure that we, you know, or that we stay together as we're mingling, that we're not you going off with your buddies and leaving me, or you going off with your coworkers and leaving me? Can we stay together as we mingle? So
Yeah.
those are some things that come to my mind. Anything else that came to your mind as we slow that down?
Yeah. Well, okay. So one thing that just popped in my brain is like another thing might be like, where are your eyes going to be? Because that's something that a betrayed partner does a lot of scanning herself because her brain is like, is there
Mhm.
danger? Is there danger? And usually the first place that she will scan is her partner's eyes. Where are
Mhm.
his eyes? So it might be really good to just have that conversation. Where am I at right now? Like, let's start there. What is my capacity right now? I'm regulated. I think I'm at maybe a 3 or 4. And so like I think I can go, I think I can be there. And this is what I would need. This is what I am hoping that you can do, right? Um, so that would be, I would make sure like where are your eyes? You can make requests. I'm thinking from the partner's perspective, right? Um,
Mhm.
but if you're making requests, we also need to make sure you have a boundary to back up that request.
Yeah.
So if that, maybe if the request is, can you step outside with me right now? It's like I am not okay. And maybe it's not a good time. Maybe he's in the middle of a conversation, or maybe they're, whatever the thing is, like, I just can't right now. Okay, well then what am I going to do? Because I could just stand there and be really triggered, or my action is going to be, then I will go step outside alone maybe, or I'm
Right.
going to grab a friend or somebody. But there
Mhm.
there needs to be a plan B that is 100% in your control, because that's what's going to help you to stay regulated. If you know that you're not depending on somebody else completely to keep you safe.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
That what do you have that's within your control that can help you feel empowered? And if we look at it relationally and you're both in a good place and you're both willing and wanting to do the work, can we be supportive in it? Knowing, I think that's it. My brain's going off track here, but knowing that I have control and the ability to create my own safety, I think is preliminary. It's like I have to trust myself before
Yeah.
I'm ever going to be able to trust anybody else. And so knowing that I have the skills and the abilities and the tools and to know how to create my own safety is an important piece in this healing journey, and knowing that I have the ability to do it.
Yeah. So I want to highlight something that you just said, that you needed to know that you could trust yourself first. Like, we can't trust anybody else to a greater degree than we already trust ourselves. So
Mhm.
if you're having trouble trusting, we got to start with building that self-trust. Absolutely. And Amy, I see in the chat, can you just not go, absolutely. That is one of your choices, right? And that's part of that communication piece. That might be something that you're just going to say, this year, I can't do it. And
Yeah.
it is okay.
And as I look at that question, I'm talking about we're creating a plan together. You may be in a position where your spouse isn't willing to even consider a plan. They might not have any empathy or anything. They might not be doing any work right now. And so it may not be safe. You may not feel safe at all to go to any of those functions. And that's okay.
Mhm.
If you say, I won't be going to that with you, or I'm going to do this, you can do that. And that's really tricky sometimes when you have kids. And it's okay to, you know, do things differently than you did. If he wants to take his kids and go to his family party, and you want to take your kids and go to your family party, but you don't feel comfortable going together, that might be what you need to do this year, and that's okay. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, this is really broad when we think about boundaries, because everybody's situation is so different. But knowing that you have choices and that you have the ability to create your own safety, whatever that looks like, to whatever level that looks like, is important. And if we're in a relational space where we're working to rebuild trust and create safety, if you can do it together and make a plan, that can be healing as you work on it together.
Yeah. The more you do together, as far as communicating where you're at and what you need, the more you're going to be able to heal as a couple, if that
Mm.
is what you're hoping to do. And I think something that you just said is like, it's okay to be like, just be where you are, be where your feet are right now. And if right now this is not okay, then this is not okay, period. Like, just accept that this is now, it's not forever. It can feel like if I don't go this year, then I'm like setting up the precedents for the rest of forever. But just like if you were to like get in a car accident and be in traction in the hospital, no one would expect you to show up at that party. Not a single person would be surprised. And it is tricky because nobody really probably knows why you're not going. And they don't maybe have the right to know. Not everybody has to know all the things, right?
Which that leads me to my another thought on this is that it can be part of the reason I think that it can be tricky to go to some of these things is sometimes we might feel like we're not authentic when we go there. And so it can be really hard for somebody to go, "Oh, how are you guys doing?" And it's really painful to go, "Yeah, we're good. Everything's good." And when really you're dying inside, right? And they don't know what's going on, and you don't really want them to know what's going on. And so this is where it can be helpful to either to if you're working relationally, to have a plan together. And if you're not, to have, and even I would say individually as well, to have a plan for what you're going to say when people ask things. If there are people that know, like if there's friends or family that do know your situation, and somebody starts asking you questions, you really don't have to answer them. You can just, you can say, I really don't want to talk about that tonight. Or you can say, you know, I kind of like vague things like, it's been a year and we're still working on things, or if people know about things. If they're trying to pull out information that you aren't prepared or don't feel comfortable giving, you don't have to give it, even if they know some of your story. You can just give them the vague, you know, it's been hard and we're working on things. That's all they need to know. They don't need to know anything. So just remember you have a right to share your story and you have a right to not share your story, and be
Mm.
very careful about who you share and what you share. So at those things, I think it's helpful to have a plan about how you're going to respond to questions that people have. And I like to just have an authentic, like if they're like, "Oh, how are you doing?" If they don't know my story, I feel really authentic being fake and saying, "Yeah, oh, it's so good. Everything's good." I like to just say, "It's been a rough year, but man, I'm working through it. I'm doing good. How about you?" And then just flip it back on them, but then I'm still being authentic to myself without saying, "Oh, well, it sucks. This is what's going on." But
Yeah,
I'm not putting on a facade that everything's rainbows and butterflies if it isn't.
yeah. I love what they say. I think it's in Sweden. Like a common response is, I'm up and not crying. I'm like, I love that one. Because if you say that, like that's true. And usually people don't ask additional questions.
Yeah. And if they do, you can shut them down in a nice way, in
Yeah,
a boundaried way.
yeah.
Not really something I want to talk about, but
Yeah, and I love that you brought out that like not everybody's earned the right to hear everything. Like there's different levels of disclosure, right? And I like to picture that as like your life is a stage, and like some people get a backstage pass that they can see all the props and the costumes on the floor and all the mess behind the scenes and all of that. That's very few people that get the backstage pass, right? Then there's some people that are on the front row. They don't get to be on stage with you, but you know that they're going to be encouraging. So you invite them to be on the front row to cheer you on. You can see them even with the theater lights on. Then there's people that like halfway through the theater, you don't really want to hear them or see them, but you know that they mean well. So they can come and watch. Then there might be some people that like, I know you have to be here. I don't want you here so you can have the nosebleed, right? And then there's some people that just don't get a ticket to the theater. And
yeah,
it's okay to just determine, like, as a couple, who do we want in our backstage? Who do we want on our front row? Who do we allow in our mid, and who's nosebleed and who doesn't get to be in? And then
yeah,
we both uphold that and honor that for each other.
yeah. Yes. I love that analogy, by the way. I haven't heard that one before, but I love that analogy. I also think it's okay to this recovery journey can sometimes kind of push you push you in a direction of having boundaries with unhealthy people in your life. And it's okay to have unhealthy or to have boundaries with unhealthy people in your life, even if they're close relatives. But if they're not safe and they're not supportive, it's okay to have boundaries, even if they're different than what they're used to. People that, when you start to apply boundaries that they're not used to, they don't always like it, but that's okay. You can still have boundaries with people, even if they're close relatives or people who used to have more access to you. If you need to have stronger boundaries, it's okay to do that.
Yeah. And can I just say though, like it's going to be really hard to hold a boundary, especially with people who have benefited from you not having those boundaries.
Mhm.
So part of that setting that boundary is going to have to be like sitting down with yourself and like, why do I need this boundary? What am I protecting by setting this boundary? Because if you know what you're protecting, you're going to be a lot more likely to keep that boundary.
Yeah.
If you don't really know what you're protecting, then the minute somebody pushes against it, it's going to feel like it takes more energy to hold it than it does to just let them walk all over you. So that is a really important piece too in setting those boundaries.
Yeah. Okay. I want to just pause and ask if there's any questions. I see a couple that have come into the Q&A that we're going to get to. Um, anything else before we move to questions, Laura, that you want to make sure that we highlight on this topic
Um,
of holidays?
well, there's a couple of things just really quick that I just want to throw out there. It's just like just navigating this space. One would be take lots of pictures. If you have little kids at home, take lots of pictures because right now you probably are just surviving and you're not going to remember. You're going to, like, years down the road, you're gonna be like, I don't even, that whole section of time is just blocked out for me. So the more pictures you can take of your kids will be like a gift to you down the road because you're not going to remember it. And then the other thing that I wanted to just maybe highlight is that division of responsibilities. Because
Mhm.
in the past, there has been like maybe I have done all of the shopping and the wrapping and all of that side of things, and then he's done, other things. I don't know. I don't know how the division has been
The
in your
lights, and the Christmas lights.
hanging the Christmas lights, bringing all the decorations in or whatever. And it might need to look different this year. There might need to be a different division. Like maybe there's going to need to be more help in the organization and in the carrying out of the things. And it's okay to like state where you're at and request that.
Mhm. And even just giving yourself permission to like tone it down a little bit. Maybe you don't put up all the decorations that you normally do. Maybe the neighbors don't get a Christmas little neighbor gift this year, and that's okay. Maybe you don't send out Christmas cards. That was one I let go. Like a tradition I used to do. I haven't done that for a long time, and it actually feels really good.
Yeah.
So maybe you let some things go, and maybe you pare it down a little bit, and maybe you ask for help. And if you're the one that always hosts Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve or whatever, it's okay to ask somebody else to host if you don't have the capacity to do it this year. So
Mhm.
just be very compassionate with yourselves, especially if you're early in this journey, because it is challenging without the holidays in the middle of all of this. And the holidays just add more and more. And I want to go back to that question in the chat. Can you just not go? Yes, you can just not go if you don't want to go. And you can create new traditions. You can create the holidays can look different if you want them to. Stephanie and I on our Choosing to Stay After Infidelity and Betrayal podcast did a couple of episodes on the holidays. So if you want to dive deeper into some of this stuff, go check out our podcast and you can find the link to, they were a couple weeks ago. So I think there's three of them, the couple weeks before Thanksgiving, and then the last one came out on Thanksgiving Day, I believe. So um, you can listen to those if you want more. I'll try and find the link to that here in a minute too. So if you have any more questions about this holiday stuff, I hope this is helpful for you to get some ideas. And if you need somebody to give you permission to do things differently, then let Laura and I give you permission to do things differently. Um, okay, let me look at this one that came in the chat real quick because I think it's still on this topic. Can you discuss adult children coming home from college and etc. and trying to keep this from them?
Hmm. Hmm. Okay.
I did the same thing, Laura. You go first and then I'll share some thoughts.
Okay. I just first, I'm just noticing what's happening in my body right now. And I just feel for you. I can't even imagine how hard this is going to be for you because it is like the most important thing in your life right now. And it is derailing you. And to have your college kids coming home and not wanting them to know, of course, you would want to know how to handle that. And what I'm noticing also is just in general, kids know more than you think they know. and they are really good barometers of what's happening in the home. And so even if they don't know the reason, their body will be responding to it. So I am not saying that you need to tell them at all. That is not what I'm saying. I'm just I'm just acknowledging that their body is going to be responding. And so you might notice they're more tense or more anxious or whatever. So that's important to note that. That doesn't mean that you need to do anything about that. Um, I, I'm going to let you go, Hallie, because I need to formulate my thoughts on what I would do, though.
I know. I don't know. Um, well, I'm gonna give you a suggestion and to maybe schedule a consultation this week with Morgan Ellsworth on our Choose Recovery team because this is her area of expertise. It's her experience as a child, my child, living as a teenager and a young adult, as she watched us navigate this. And she has a lot of thoughts about it from a child's perspective. And the thing that I've learned from her, and I didn't do it all right, didn't do a lot of things right with her, and I've learned a lot from her, that if I were to go back and do things differently, I would be more honest with her because they're adults. And even teenagers, I mean, be honest with them to their age and their level of understanding. Because like Laura said, they sense and they know that something isn't right. And so if we try to pretend like everything is right and they sense that something is off, then it can, we're kind of walking on the line of having them question their own reality. I hate to say this word because it hurts so much, but Morgan says, don't gaslight your kids. And I'm like, oh, because I was the queen of like, it's fine, everything's fine, there's nothing going on here. But my kids knew there was something going on there. And so then they made up stories that were bigger than even what it was. And they made up things that were scary to them. And so I would say to be as honest with them as you can to the level of their understanding. And Morgan is really good to give some insight on that. So if you want to do a session with her and get some insights from a child, an adult. I mean, Morgan's in school to become a therapist now too, and she's a certified coach with us at Choose Recovery Services. But she's walked that path as a child and she has some really good insights on it. There's actually a couple podcast episodes. She did one with Stephanie without me. I let her do it without me. Several months ago, she's been on Luke's podcast with him talking about how to talk to your children about these things. And so, if they ask pointed questions, I would suggest you be honest, would be my suggestion. That doesn't mean you tell the details, but I would recommend honesty because if if you think about what deception has done for you, there's people can handle the truth, they can't handle the lies. And so it doesn't mean they need details, but I would suggest honesty would be my recommendation. And adult children, I mean all children of all ages will be impacted by this, and they will also have their own healing journey through all of this. And we can just do the best that we can with the knowledge and information that we have at the time. But if I were able to go back, I would have been more honest. And so I would recommend honesty without a lot of details, but and to the level of their understanding. Because if you tell them it's fine, they might feel like you're gaslighting them. And I don't like to think that my children felt like I was gaslighting them. So,
Yeah.
anything else you would add, Laura?
Yeah, I think that's what I would lean towards too, is trying to be as honest as I can. Um, and I do want to honor though that there might be a part of you that's like, but what if that's not an option? Like I just don't feel like I can be honest. That might be something to take, like, yeah, I would go to Morgan for sure, get some insight there. But I want to rewind to something that you said is that the kids will make up their own stories and it's usually worse than what anybody any of the truth is, right? And that is like, that stems from shame, that if I can make it my fault, then I can fix it. So if I feel like something's wrong, and then I'm being told that nothing, like everything's okay, then I'm going to make up in my head, okay, well, it doesn't feel okay. So then what must be wrong? Maybe my mom's dying of cancer and they're not telling me. Or maybe my dad is, you know, has to go live somewhere else for a while because he's got some work contract, some secret whatever contract, and I don't know, like their brain will go to something that is probably worse than the reality is, even though the reality feels really hard right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So I put Morgan's email in the chat and a link to her bio if anybody wants to reach out to her. She's a great resource for this area because she has lived it. And so I would recommend that you reach out to her if you have questions. She's really helpful in this. Okay, thank you for those questions. Let me see. Let me back up to the first question that came in. So what help or would we, I'm trying to formulate it in a question. Okay, so they want some help with post-disclosure, anxiety, panic, and thought looping. There hasn't been a formal disclosure, but staggered disclosure, but they finally believe that everything has been revealed. So support around post-disclosure anxiety, panic, and thought looping.
Mm, mm. Okay. So what I'm noticing, so there has been a disclosure. There hasn't been a formal disclosure,
It
but
sounds like not a formal disclosure, but staggered disclosure, but they believe they finally have the truth.
okay. Okay. So here's a couple of things that are popping to the top right now is yes, full disclosure done in staggered talks. Okay.
Okay, so let me just pause real quick because when we're talking about full disclosure, we're probably this might be a terminology thing. Laura and I are thinking formal therapeutic disclosure supported by professionals where they've come up with a timeline under professional support. And it doesn't sound like that's what this is, but disclosure has been done in the privacy of your home with talks between.
Okay.
That's what I'm gathering. If you
Yeah,
want
it sounds like I feel like I know everything from talks in our own home is what I'm gathering. So that's how I'm going to be answering this.
to.
So if I'm wrong, then throw it up there. Okay, so a couple of things that are coming to my brain right now is there's a difference between formal therapeutic disclosure and disclosure, like just a conversation. And if I can help a partner here, even if it's the same exact information in a calm body, that helps that partner process that in a safer, holistic way. Because in a calm body, I have that left brain online that is then anchored to timelines, right? If you're finding that you're feeling that you're experiencing a lot of thought looping, what that is telling me is that your brain is trying to make sense of something that doesn't make sense. Because probably when you were disclosed that, when that information was disclosed to you, you were not in a calm body. So your right brain, your survival brain is like, have to survive this, have to survive this, have to survive this. And it doesn't have the benefit of the left brain online at that same time. So it's called a forced hippocampal review. That's the technical term for it, but it's basically your brain is like kind of like a movie scene and going back to every memory that you have with this person and trying to see with this new information, how does that fit in? And that is something that your brain has to do to be able to process all of this information. A lot of that can happen in a formal therapeutic disclosure if it's done correctly. But if you feel like, man, I have all the information, I don't want to do that again. Okay, so then my next step would be let's get some ART or brain spotting to help your brain process that information because that's going to help with that.
Yeah, I 100% agree. While you were talking, Laura, I went and found the link to Dr. Jake Porter's YouTube video that talks about how trauma affects your brain, and he talks about the hippocampal review.
Mm.
Such a validating video for someone who is right in the middle of that and experiencing that. There isn't anything wrong with you. He calls it a neurobiological necessity of the brain to make
Mhm.
sense of your story. And so
Mhm.
when your brain is on that loop going, but what about this and what and when this happened and what and like trying to put the puzzle pieces back together, it's a neurobiological necessity of the brain for that to make sense of your story. And
Mhm.
so watch that video if you can. It's such a validating video that makes sense of all of that. And I second everything that Laura says. And if you're not getting individual support right now, that would be another thing I would recommend is to reach out and get somebody on your team that is helping you talk through what's coming up for you. Even group support is awesome for that because you're with other ladies that are healing happens in community. I know that might be scary to think about, but we've experienced it, we facilitate it. Healing happens in community. And so getting in either both, if possible, a group setting and then getting some individual support. I second the brain spotting, the ART, EMDR, some sort of trauma modality that can help you process through those difficult things. But my biggest thing for you is that you're not crazy and there's nothing wrong with you. And it makes sense. There are some tools and skills that you can learn for those things, and learning how to regulate your body. An individual support person can be super helpful for you in that. So,
Yeah.
um,
I love that you just said you're not crazy because I think that's the number one thing you feel in
mhm,
this space is I am losing my mind.
mhm,
And you're not crazy. Like just to understand, like my brain is doing exactly what it's wired to do. It has to do this to heal. That can be a really validating space to
mhm.
work from. Yeah.
Okay, hopefully that is helpful for you. Let me go to this next one. So the next question is, how do we build safety around my partner's thoughts? We are in recovery and each doing our work. He has a support system for accountability that he has reached out to. He's been honest and taken steps to work through unwanted thoughts. I feel unstable with his thoughts that return to his affair partner. What encouragement and advice would you give us to move through this?
Mm, wow. That is so hard, especially when there's a lot of work being done. Because I think
Mhm,
the story that you tell yourself, well, the story I'm telling myself right now is like, we're both doing the work. So why does it feel better? Right?
mhm.
Yeah. Do you want to go first on this one?
I'm just trying to decide where to start because I actually have some questions about this question.
Mm,
So I feel unstable with his thoughts. Does that mean that you're not sure where his thoughts are going, or is he telling you that he's still having return thoughts about the affair partner and he's fantasizing about being with the affair partner or something like that? So I have questions about the question. If I don't know if whoever answered this, if you want to give some more clarification on that. I'm not sure they're even still on. Let me see. They'll get it in the link to the recording if not. So we might have to do the best we can. I'm not sure they're still on here.
mm.
If you are still on here and want to give us some clarification. So if I read this question, oh, there's some clarification. Thoughts of her and his feelings both emotionally and sexually.
That are still ongoing.
They're still ongoing, or that you're worried about them. You're worried that he's having those, or he is telling you that he's still having those feelings and emotion, or that's still happening. Because let me just address where my brain went first. Okay. So when we talk about, um, because I guess my brain is associating the word fantasizing with this, not necessarily, um, like, anyway, my brain is going to fantasizing with it. I'm thinking about this other person. I'm thinking about my feelings and sexual, I'm having sexual thoughts about that person. That goes to fantasizing. And for fantasizing thoughts, it's not really helpful to know the details of those thoughts for a betrayed partner. What is helpful is to know that the person that's having the fantasizing thoughts has some skills and tools to know what to do with them when those things come up. Because if they come and I am aware of them and I recognize them, and then I use my skills and tools to then go, okay, that's actually not where I want my thoughts to be. And then I redirect and I come back to my value-based mind and my value-based responses. That's one thing. That's a healthy way to respond to that. We're all normal people. We see attractive people out in the public all the time, and you can see an attractive person and go, oh, that's an attractive person. And then I'm moving back to my value-based brain. We don't sit and fantasize about what it might be like to be with them or talk to them or whatever. So what are they doing with those thoughts and feelings when they come up? And are they redirecting them to their more value-based mindset? Or are they lingering on them to where they then move into like a next level of fantasy? Or are they dwelling on them long enough to where they act out on them? And so that is the work of the person who is betrayed and might still be having thoughts and feelings of their affair partner emotionally and sexually. They need to really get clear on what are their values? What do they want? What what choices are they making? And then what are they doing with those fantasizing thoughts that come up? Yes, not they have come back and are ongoing. Okay, yes, not details of his thoughts, but he shared that he's having unwanted thoughts of her that move him back to feelings for her. This leaves me feeling scared and insecure. Yeah, that makes sense why you'd feel scared and insecure. So I would say this person still has a lot of work to do, individual work with their individual therapist or coach or whoever their individual support system is to really get to the root of those.
Mhm.
Okay, Laura, I've been rambling. You jump in here. What else would you add?
I love what you said. I think I just want to second all the things that you said. Another thing that might be helpful, and again, I don't know the situation exactly, so I'm just making a lot of these details up in my brain. But if he is in a space where it sounds like he's doing a lot of work and he's got a lot of support and he's doing the things that are giving him the tools to try to overcome this, and that maybe these are unwanted thoughts that are popping in that's ongoing, and that of course would be so triggering for a partner, right? um, ART can help with that. It can help to move the emotional connection out of that.
You're
uh,
talking for him.
for him, yeah, but also for her, also for the betrayed partner, because it is triggering for you as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I, there are some somatic ways of moving that through as well that can be helpful, like just another tool in the tool belt, right? But really, like having a phrase, this is something that I talk to my clients about sometimes, is like, what is your phrase going to be when those thoughts enter your brain? Like, I don't care, not my wife. Okay, this is not my wife. I'm not thinking about that. That's like, have some phrase that you tell yourself that shifts your mind out of that immediately as soon as you notice it, because you're trying to rewire your brain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of that phase one of the fantasy is like, okay, I'm noticing it and I'm redirecting.
Mhm,
Or am I letting myself dwell on them? Or am I dwelling on them to the point that I'm going to act out on them?
mhm,
And
mhm.
definitely those are unsafe behaviors for a betrayed partner. So I would say that with this situation, there's still a lot of individual work to be done. And maybe you need a CSAT if they're still, if for the one who's still having these types of thoughts, if your support person is not a certified sex addiction therapist, um, or specifically trained in this, it might be helpful to find someone specialized. There's a question about what is ART. I know we're about out of time, but do you want to explain that a little bit, Laura? What is ART?
Yeah, so it's very similar to EMDR. It was developed out of EMDR. So EMDR uses the bilateral movement, so does ART. The difference between ART and EMDR, though, is that with ART, you're taking a situation. So you're not taking the whole like timeline. You're just taking like, I can't walk into that building because it is so triggering to me and I have a panic attack. You can take that situation and after one session of ART, it's not like you don't know what happened in that building, but you're no longer triggered by it. So that's the like Cliff Notes version of that. So, and you can go to, I, gosh,
I know how to find like,
I am an ART therapist and I can't remember where that directory is. If you search accelerated resolution therapy, there is a website and they have a list of clinicians on there that you can find somebody in your state that's licensed in your state.
okay, we'll try and find the ART link and have Vanessa send it out too. We might have a lot of links for Vanessa to send out this time with this one. We'll try and find the link for where you can find an ART therapist. So there's lots of good options for modalities to help heal through these traumatic experiences, ART, EMDR, brain spotting. So we recommend them. Find what works for you, find a therapist you feel connected with. I think we got to all of our questions. I hope these were helpful. I know we're kind of answering without all the details, but hopefully you gathered at least some nugget from what we've shared with you. And if you need additional support, then feel free to reach out to us. Laura, are you comfortable putting your email in the chat? Do you want to share that?
I don't think I have the ability to type in the chat, but maybe I do.
I didn't set all this stuff up, but did I ever put your link to your bio
Oh, I
in?
think I just put it in there.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Okay. And I know that I meant to put the link to your bio.
oh,
I don't know why I just got kicked out, but I did. So my internet was unstable. So sorry about that. Ray, which
I am in Nevada.
are you licensed in any other states? Just Nevada.
Not yet. I'm just Nevada right now.
Okay. All right. So that's one thing to note if you're not aware, if you're working with a therapist, they have to be licensed within the state that you live. And as coaches, they don't have those state line restrictions. So the beautiful
So
thing,
I am also a coach, but ART is done therapy wise,
yeah,
but brain spotting can be done by coaches. So
yeah, that's what I was just going to say. So the fortunate thing for Laura is she's both. So she can work with you in a therapeutic way in the state of Nevada and as a coach anywhere.
mhm.
So you just wouldn't be able to do ART with her outside of Nevada, but you could do brain spotting. So
Unless you're on Nevada soil.
yes. So, okay. Well, we're out of time. I hope that this was helpful for you and that you got some piece of good nuggets for you as you're preparing for the holidays. And watch for the email to come from Vanessa. We'll try and put as many of these links in there as we can. And we appreciate you joining us. If there's any questions or support that you need, please reach out to us at Choose Recovery. We have lots of great resources and are here to support you in this journey. So thank you, Laura, for being with me. And we will plan on seeing all of you the second Sunday in January for the next Road to Recovery. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.